11:51 is the time. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where we move now to one regime in mortal peril to another, albeit that the stakes are considerably higher in Iran than they are in Westminster. I'm joined by Omid Djalili, the actor and comedian, who is, of course, of Persian extraction. So you'll have been watching these events even more closely than the rest of us, Omid. What is different about this uprising compared to previous ones?
That's a great question, because whenever there were uprisings before, there were leaders, and this regime is very good at suppressing. They put the leaders in under house arrest and just massacre a lot of people. Everyone goes quiet and you get on with life because it's easier just to stay quiet. Here it's different. Whenever they have forced confessions, people just go on and do forced confessions, and they have to act really well. So they really prepare, and they're very convincing. Elnaz Rekabi was in Seoul recently for the mountain climbing, and she didn't wear a hijab, and she became a hero. She was given a hero's welcome, and then apparently her passport was confiscated, her phone was confiscated, and now she has made a retraction saying it was basically a wardrobe malfunction.
It fell off.
It fell off or something, yeah. And when she was giving a speech to the cameras, you can tell she's even sending a message with her eyes. Her eyes are dead, and she's just, we've listened to Persian, she goes, yes. She's very clearly sending a message to Iranians, this is a forced confession. So What we had now is the women are not scared. Nikah Shah Karami was a 16-year-old girl who was beaten and killed, and the body was given to the parents. And the mother was then, can you imagine having your daughter killed, and then you want your mother, the mother is asked to go on state television to make a forced confession to say that the Basiji or the moral police had nothing to do with it. And she refused. And then they threatened to burn her. And then she said something that has become like a motto and a slogan. She just said, you can't burn women made of fire.
Wow.
And it shut them up. And I think this is what's different is you don't mess with women in general, but Iranian women, we call them Shirazan, which means lion ladies. And you don't mess with them. And there's so many videos of people say, you do not mess with Iran. That's it. This is it for you now. People saying, this is it. Once you've annoyed the women, that is such a hornet's nest that the regime's days are numbered.
That's incredible. Because it began, of course, with the murder of Mahsa
Amini, yes, who was wearing a hijab, and she was a Kurdish woman who'd just come to Tehran on a day trip, and she apparently wasn't wearing it right, wasn't tight enough, and she was showing 2 inches of her hair, and was going to be taken away for what's called, like a driver awareness course. It's like a hijab awareness course, and she was resisting, saying, "I'm wearing my hijab. What's the problem? What are you doing?" And she was beaten viciously and died. And this was the powder keg moment that I think Iranians have been waiting for a moment like that, where basically the women stood up and said, you do not do this. And I kind of feel, because there's no leader, and the women are saying we don't need a leader, because if there is a leader, then you'll do what you did last time. This is a conscious, organic movement which has spread all across all strata of society, that they're killing children as young as 12 and 7 now, because even the children are kind of refusing. There was a girl called Asra Panahi who just refused to sing a pro-regime song, and she was beaten and she died. So that's it's adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, so it's every time they cut someone down, 10 more people step forward to replace her. And so optimism's a scary thing, though, isn't it? You know that line about hope and despair. You can deal with the despair. It's the hope that gets you every time, isn't it?
It is. But I am hopeful, and I think because the outrage that is coming out now, it's very difficult to know because the internet's cut. So we've been asked to be through Elon Musk's Starlight thing. That a couple of videos are coming out, and they're begging us to be a voice, being their voice. So a lot of us outside of Iran are doing our best we're gleaning what's going on, and we can just amplify their voices. But I do feel that the information we're getting is so hopeful. For example, the military have now come out and saying the moral police are nothing to do with us. And there's a great video of someone being beaten, and he's shouting at them. He goes, "Dude, are you speaking Arabic?" Because of course it's difficult. And they're now recruiting ISIS fighters in Iran to suppress the Iranian people. So the military have come out saying, this is not us.
Right.
We are refusing.
This is the religious police.
There is the religious police. We have this thing called the moral police, who's such downers. They go around Like they'll stop you, James. He goes, "Why have you cut your beard like this? You haven't cut. You can keep your beard like that, but you should shave the bottom bit there because it'll hurt your Adam's apple." They go around telling people how to live, and this is why it's become more than just the major feminist movement on the planet. This is for all people to live a free life.
Right.
And there are Muslims I know who are absolutely outraged, saying, "Who are these people telling people how they can live their lives? You should be free to be a Christian or a Muslim, or in my case a Baha'i, who are very much a suppressed minority. Who are you to tell us how to live? Well, how are you telling Muslims how to be a proper Muslim?"
I have more questions for you. I mentioned at the beginning that the situation in Iran puts the internecine warfare in Westminster at the moment somewhat in the shade and reminds us of what really matters. But I should tell you that Graham Brady has just gone into Downing Street, the chair of the 1922 committee. The Prime Minister's spokesman said at the beginning of lobby this morning, so about half an hour or so ago, that there were no plans for the Prime Minister to meet Graham Brady. She is now meeting Graham Brady.
That's just so funny because I was on stage the other night and people said, what's going on in Iran? And I said, and I hadn't finished my thought and they started laughing. I said, can you imagine living in a country where a leader is forced on you and you can't even vote for them? And this woofer came up, wait, what?
Yeah, so it's the ability to find the comedy in everything. It's a rare gift. What happens next? I understand the escalation. I understand the organic nature of it. I understand how the absence of a pinnacle for the pyramid makes it impossible for the regime to behave in a traditional way. But what would a tipping point be? What would the...
I think the tipping point is definitely international intervention. Right. I know that when I was on Peston last night, I was saying that Britain is the only country that really hasn't made a statement on the Islamic regime. James Cleverly, as Foreign Secretary, God bless him, has put out a statement saying we sanction the morality police. But that's like, I'll give you a different analogy. It's a bit like a bloke with a machete going around killing people. Then you stop him and then you sanction the machete.
Got you.
So it doesn't make sense. You have to, like the European Parliament have all called out the Islamic regime and they need to be held accountable for this. We need to put pressure on them. They do listen to pressure. And once you have that, in the same way we're putting sanctions on Russia. And sadly, I think Iran are not going to make the World Cup now because they've sent drones and they've sent missiles supporting Russia. And if you do that, then there will be sporting sanctions. So the game I was looking forward to all my life, there's never been an England v Iran game. That, sadly, is probably not going to happen. So I think we need international pressure. And, there will be a time, James, in the future, not now, but when there's a recalcitrant government who just has continued to ignore human rights standards and are abusing people, there will be a time where all the countries of the world stand up and liquidate that government. And we didn't do it with Putin. We're not doing it with the Islamic Republic of Iran. We're not doing that. And we're pussyfooting around because we're still in business with these people.
So the pressure has to come from outside. You can't see it bubbling over inside.
Yes, I can see that as well, because the women are saying
this is what intrigues me: the idea of just the streets being engulfed with so many people that the regime is carried out, kicking and screaming.
There is
there a prospect of that?
Yeah, the women have said, leave it to us. I used to do a joke about how women always find things. If men, like when my mum would send me to the kitchen and say, could you get me this? I said, where is it? She goes, I can't find it. She goes, there it is. It'll be the Iranian women saying, oh, all those political prisoners you don't know whether you said you didn't have. Here they are. All those tanks that you said never came from Britain, here they are.
So it just becomes like a saturation of reality after decades of denial.
And this is, by the way, this is something we've been waiting for since the day after the revolution. Shirin Ebadi is a human rights lawyer who basically said we were all behind this Islamic regime when there was a referendum to change the name from Iran to Islamic Republic of Iran. Do you know what the percentage was? 99.3% voted, which puts the Brexit percentage to shame. But the very next day...
We tend not to talk about Brexit
but I'm saying... But this is important. It's very important for people to know that the very next day, the intellectuals who got behind that revolution, this woman, Shirin Ebadi, was a judge. She went to the court and they wouldn't let her in. He goes, oh, you're now a receptionist. She goes, no, I'm a judge. She goes, no. You can either go into janitorial or you can be a receptionist, you choose. She goes, this is unacceptable. This, if you don't like it, you can go home. And the very next day, we knew we'd been played. And so this revolution has been coming for 43 years.
Thank you, Omid. And
My pleasure.
thank you also to my colleague Sam, who was insistent that I do
Yes.
a little bit more to cover this, and I know he got in touch with you. And,
Look, people are worried about domestic issues all over the world, but I just think this is a major feminist movement happening under our very eyes, and if we don't get behind it, then shame on us, really.
There's a microphone here whenever you want to.
Thank you, mate.
All
Cheers.
right, it's 12:01.